old man called Lord Caversham, who is the father of someone called Lord Goring. And this old boy, he's always very annoyed that his son doesn't do something proper. I mean, it's a sort of part, when my wife was hearing my lines the other day, she said, oh, you're made for this part. Because he's very sort of, he doesn't quite understand why his son doesn't get on and do things and this like that. It's a very good part. It's very well written. If I say that it's enormously enjoyable, no one likes learning lines very much, but I'm enjoying learning these lines because they're such beautiful lines to say. Often in my career you've had to learn things which aren't particularly good. Dross, semi-dross, not so good. But Oscar Wilde, who writes so beautifully, it's a joy to learn the lines. And The Maylys is not a very large part, which suits me enormously, because as I started by saying, it's a bit of a donkey work learning the lines, it is, especially as you getting on a bit. And so that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to go to this play in Germany, not in German, I hasten to add. No, you couldn't do that, because I can't speak good enough German anyway. I don't think Oscar Wilde, well, I don't know. He's very popular in Germany. They've got in the town of Frankfurt an English-speaking theatre, which they do about 4 shows a year. They use English actors, American actors sometimes, and for example, at the moment there's a Return to the Forbidden Planet on. After I leave in The Ideal Husband, they've got Private Lives by Noel Coward on. They've had Corpse on recently, you know, the play that Colin was in, wasn't he? Yeah, I think he was in Corpse. Yeah. And they've done Wilde, and they've done Shakespeare. And they look after you very well. It's a very, very nice company, which is good. We started rehearsing last week. And they're very, very good. I haven't met any of them before, but I think it's going to be terrific because all the young people, there aren't much young people, they're perfectly cast, very well cast. We've got a director by the name of Mark Greenstreet who has done a Doctor Who, I know, and he, being an actor, is very good with actors. I mean, I'm tangenting a bit, I directed my first play last year, Noel Coward piece, and it's very encouraging because he understands the actor's problems. And for example, when I asked if I could have time off, you know, because I wanted to come here, he was the first person to say yes. And so that's what I'm involved in at the moment. I think they're a great company. We're going to get on because all of us enjoy going to the bar. All of us do.
Are all the cast English?
Yes, all of them.
And the director's English?
And the director, yes.
So what element is it apart from a German theatre? What element of German?
Well, all the stage staff are German. The lady who runs the theatre, Judith Rosenbauer, I think her name is, actually she's American. She's a black American actress, and she's been running this theatre. So I suppose the German side of it is the resident stage manager, the wardrobe lady who we met at a fitting the other day, and I haven't met them yet because you know, I go over Sunday week to Frankfurt and we have small rehearsal time there. So that, I suppose, is the element of all the staff and stage staff and as I say, the artistic director who also is in charge of the theatre. That's the German side, but the cast...
Is everything that they do English?
Yes, mostly, yes. Return to the Forbidden Planet, which is, you know, is a musical based on Shakespeare's Tempest, and then, as I say, it was Private Lives. They did Portsmouth Ernest, again, another Oscar Wilde play, Corpse, a thriller, Diane for Murder, what they did last year, where Mark Greenstreet, who was the director, played the lead. So they're all pretty English, yeah, all the plays, I think.
Mark Greenstreet was in Sylvester's first one.
Rani, with Kate Amari, knows.
Covered in sequins.
Was he? Yeah. Well, with Kate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With Kate, yeah.
And funny enough, to digress, from that story, I had to give time off to both Kate and Mark to go and see a colleague of mine called Jerry Glaister, who was setting up a new series, and he wanted everyone to look beautiful, called Trainer.
Yes.
And Kate went off for half a day to go and see Jerry, and Mark went off for half an afternoon or whatever it was, and they both were cast.
That's right. Because that was with Nigel Davenport, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All about horse racing.
Yeah.
Very close to my soul, as you know. Very fond of horse racing.
Before we sort of get round to Doctor Who, no actor will ever answer the question in the same way that I'm about to ask. But something that has always fascinated me, having attempted to be an actor, is you get the script, you agree to do it because you like the part or you need the money, whatever. You agree the money, you sign on the dotted line. What happens from that point on? For you?
Yes. Well, it depends. But let's talk about plays, and I'm thinking about Northampton and Liverpool at the moment. The first thing I would do, if a play was based on a book, or indeed if a television film was based on a book, or a movie, I would read the book first. And I did this twice. First of all, going back to Northampton, where I did a lot of my early work, in which I was very happy. When I started to develop as an actor, I learned a lot. I learned a lot when I was in Northampton. Very hard work. It was weekly rep, sometimes fortnightly, but very good. Now, for example, we did a Dickens play called, not play, it was a book, Great Expectations. And I was playing the lawyer, Mr. Jaggers, and what I did, I looked in Dickens, wonderful, so colourful, his descriptions of a character. So I looked up Mr. Jaggers, and he, as I say, Dickens is very, very descriptive of people, wonderfully descriptive. All the characters are so colourful, to give you a clue. And I looked it up and read that through very carefully. You know, didn't necessarily read the whole book. I may not have had time to do so, but where Mr. Jaggers came in. And I was interested in his physical appearance, as well as some of his, in the book, not the stage version, which actually was written by Alec Guinness, the stage version. Or Alec Guinness, of course, done a lot of Dickens on film anyway. And I discovered what he looked like, Mr. Jaggers. Now, I mean, there are many people that play Mr. Jaggers, different sort of actors, different sizes and all that. But I remember looking at his description of his face, and they didn't get a wig. And I think I spent longer in makeup for that part than I've ever done before, because it was so accurately described what he looked like. I mean, I don't usually take that long of makeup. I went into enormous detail. I'm not very good at makeup, because I'm not an artist like my wife is, you know, that sort of artist. But nevertheless, I took a lot of time, and then indeed to go to the book first. I mean, if it's not a book, then of course.
What happens if there's no reference point?
If there's no reference point, then I think you work it out. I mean, okay, going back to the prime of Jean Brodie, one of my favourite parts, playing Teddy Lloyd at Liverpool in 1969. Again, we all read the book, and Ian McKellen directed. He said, I hope you've all read the book, and we all had. Okay, if there's no reference point, then I think you read the script, and you glean the sort of part it is, and you start to work out, even before you've learned the lines, or before the first rehearsal, what sort of person he might be, and how you can interpret that person, whether you're physically right or not, 'cause you aren't always necessarily physically right. And you go through in your mind. Now, for example, for a second, going straight on to Who now, in my early days as the Brigadier, I worked out in my mind a whole scenario about the Brigadier, what sort of man he was in private life. Now, obviously this never came out, because the story is Doctor Who. But I always thought, okay, I thought who his first wife. I made all this up, and Terence Dixon, it was quite neat, was our script editor. And I made up his background myself as I thought it might be, to give me a reference point.
So in other words, you as an actor created your own reference.
Yes, even though I didn't.
You created what Dickens supplied you with in Great Expectations.
Yes.
You did it yourself.
I did it myself, because you must have
kind of give us a vague idea of the development from that point, vis-a-vis you?
Yeah. That depends very much on the story, what I've got to do in that story. I mean, all this, as I say, it's very important for me to have that in the back of my mind. None of this will ever come out, maybe, in any of the Doctor Who stories, but as long as I know. So, okay, if I start rehearsing, well, for example, when I first started Colonel and the Brigadier, the lines were very sort of, barking out orders. Well, that's a bit boring for the actor, a bit boring for the audience. So I then tried to get the humour in. I then tried to base him on army officers I'd seen when I was in the army myself. Apart from my dad, who was in the army, he was an army officer. And then once I had the part for a bit of time, Terence or Barry Letts, I said, well, can I change his line? Because I did write some of my own lines. For example, the end of Planet of the Spiders, it was my idea to say, here we go again. And it was Graham, who was head of, do I mean Graham? No, I don't mean Graham.
Sean?
No, not Sean. Oh, gosh. It wasn't Graham, actually. It was, who's head of serials? You know very well. I know him very well. I'm trying to think of who it is. Anyway.
Bill Slater?
Yes, that's it. Bill Slater. And he, afterwards, at the end of the recording, he said, lovely, Nick, I love what you did with the end. And he was because I wanted to make it more humorous. I mean, I thought, you see one regeneration, see another. Rather than the lines which were written as such, Terence didn't mind, and Bill approved, to make it sort of more, well, above all, to get the humour, because, here we go again, there's another Doctor, and he's getting used to it by now. So a lot of these lines I was allowed to write myself, to produce the humour of the man, not to take the mickey out of the character. I never did that, not to make him sort of do a Monty Python, nothing like that, but just to say what an army officer in his position might have said, I think.
And sort of being a regular in the show,
Yeah.
Obviously, if you were suggesting lines all over the place, you felt that you had a kind of credence with the front office. Did that evolve, or did you feel that you had that right from the start?
No, I didn't have it from the start, because I wouldn't have had the, not effrontery to do so. But no. But once he started to become a regular, after when Pat left and John Pertwee took over, then I was developing the character, and the various writers saw the way I was playing, and they got their own ideas, Terence and others, of how I was playing the part. They therefore I wouldn't need to change lines, because they knew who the character was by then. But not to start with, I didn't. I wouldn't have dared to, I don't think. But once I'd got into the character, I thought, how would this be? I always checked with, obviously, the producer and the scriptwriter first. If they said no, then I didn't do it. But mostly, they often said, yeah, that's okay. I mean, not huge scenes we write, not so we get in the way of rehearsal time, which was always limited. But, the thing in Three Doctors when, he thinks he's in Cromer, in Norfolk, and he's not, he's on another planet. But he meant it when he said that. He really thought it was. You must do it with a straight face, not trying to get a laugh. You see? I don't know.
Yeah, reality.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, I have experienced, not necessarily when I've been at the helm, but a kind of greater affinity between an actor and the producer rather than the individual director, which I think probably any director that goes into EastEnders, say, must think, well, I better listen to God upstairs rather than this guy on the deck.
Sure.
You must have experienced that in all manner of programs, but did you ever feel in any way that you were kind of, did you feel that initially you were like the director's pet, and then you became the producer's pet?
Well, that's very accurate, because I suppose it was a director who obviously is very responsible for the Brigadier, which is Douglas Camfield. I mean, I'd worked with Douglas in Brett Pine and Dark Master Plan, and then he in Web of Fear. So the director, obviously, yes, I felt it was the director who picked me, Douglas Camfield, 3 times. I did a thriller with him as well. So therefore, it was the director who was probably the closest person to me. But once you get into a series as a regular character like in Who, then you're bound to get to know the producer, and the producer get to know him. And I suppose for an actor, yeah, probably, it can apply to any medium, the director and the writer are probably the 2 most important people to me as an actor, the director and the writer.
When I asked for a photograph, I did about 2 days' work. He sort of said, thank you for doing this and all that. And he'd been a fan of the show, I presume a fan of the Brigadiers, I suppose, to incorporate it. And when I asked him for a photograph afterwards, I said, I'm just signing money for charity. He really meant it. He said, yes, I'll give you one as long as I can have one of you, which is very nice of him. Yes, he was a very nice man to work with. His very special sort of humour. I don't always get his humour, but then I don't always get everyone's humour, but then I don't think everyone gets everyone else's humour all the time. But he was very, very good. And the little bits I did, he'd be there filming a bit with Simon at the beginning, and he took an interest, and he had quite a big say-so, apart from Robin Nash, the producer, director. Harry would be watching everything, and he wanted to be right in charge of his show. He's a very, very nice man indeed. Very nice.
Right, one more question.
Yeah. Yeah.
One more question? One more question.
One more?
Nick, when you face the Yeti in downtime, how do you feel about facing an old monster yet again? Because you faced the old monster twice. And did you?
So I didn't quite hear that.
Sorry,
Yeti in downtime.
Yeah, compare that with facing the old monster twice. How do you feel about facing an old enemy again, or did you prefer variety, having something different every time?
As I didn't hear the end of the question.
I mean, basically, do you like, I think I've got it right, do you prefer doing a story where you're facing a monster that you've met before, or do you prefer a different one every story? Is that right?
Oh yeah, I think I enjoyed in Downtime meeting the Yeti again, because I mean there's quite a comedy point. It's very funny. Again, the line's very well written. Mark, you know, when I think he's Brigadier's in a car or something, and suddenly there's a Yeti in front of him, and then he says to the 2 people who are driving by, don't worry, you know, these things happen. I mean, it's very wittily written. There's a great deal of humour for the Brigadier, which I've always liked, and I thank Mark for that, for writing those good. And yes, to see the Yeti, you know, I think it was. I think Brigadier was probably slightly more au fait with the situation, rather than being completely a monster altogether. So I didn't mind meeting the Yeti for the second time. Funny enough, they never, although they're terrifying creatures, I don't know why they didn't frighten me as much as some of the other monsters have. I don't know why. Maybe because they're a bit, I don't know why. But I didn't like those maggots.
Probably because we've had the Wombles since their first appearance.
Yes. One way around, that's right.
Right,
Yeah.
now, back to the question.
Yes. Well,
Favourite job?
favourite. I think probably, I'll find 3 jobs. I think certainly, I think the first, looking back over the long career, indeed, 50 years practically, I think was in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, playing the one-armed artist, Teddy Lloyd, because it was Ian McKellen, who's I think he's only directed once before and never since, very big an actor, very, very sensitive, and there was again a terrific cast, and I found that part most satisfying to play. There was Barbara Ewing, Liz Gephardt, Ian Talbot, a very, very good cast. It was a financial success. It was a very good adaptation of the book of Jean Brodie, and I think I loved doing that because I really thought, yeah, because I mean, Ian, you know, you couldn't mess around with it. You couldn't swan around or just, do it all like that. He wanted the truth out of it. We worked very hard. Also had a very nice time in Liverpool. And I thought, yeah, I think that's good. I was pleased with myself. Very pleased with myself, not in a big-headed way, but I was very happy with what I did. So I think that sticks out in my mind in 1969. But before that, there was one of the parts I've had in Northampton, again, most enjoyable. So many of them. I'm trying to think of the 2 years I was there, which, well, I enjoyed doing most. I mean, in a strange way, because it was such a challenge, Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party, I don't know if you know it, I played the Stanley, who's the guy who sits around in pajamas and doesn't get off his bus, and the guy who they persecute, the two other chaps. That was an incredibly difficult part to play, but again, very satisfying, because I'd never done anything like that before. So that gave me quite a buzz. I think in television, again, a very good script. I mean, I won't include Doctor Who in this because I think it's interesting not to possibly. Was written by Jeremy Paul, and it was a series called The Informer with Ian Hendry. And I was playing a very good part indeed, who a rather sort of a distinguished elderly homosexual. And it was a very, very rather, you think of, I don't know, not Dennis Price necessarily, but someone like that, and an actor called Jeremy Child was playing my boyfriend. That was very well written part, and I felt very, again, pleased with that. It was, again, very well directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg, I think. And when Ian lost his voice, and we had to do it again, because I was very glad I was able to do it again, because actually I had an operation. But Ian Hendry I got on very well with it. He was very nice. He said, well, we're going to do it again. I want Nick Corney from Mr. Henry Emerson. I remember the counter. That, I think, gave me a lot of pleasure. That's about 2, 3. There's so many stage parts which I love. I mean, I enjoyed the Festive 12th Night. I like a lot of the classical work I've done. I'd like to do more. I could really go on quite a bit longer if I could think of them all, but we haven't got time.
Interesting there that your top 3, there's 2 theatre
Yeah.
and 1 telly.
Yeah.
If you had to pick out of the 3, which one would be?
What favourite? Dear.
If you had to.
If I had to.
If there was a tape of the stage plays
Yeah.
and the tape of The Informer
Yeah.
existed, and you'd say, this is me at my prime,
Yeah.
doing a part that I was so happy with,
Right.
the most enjoyable job, which one would it be? Come on, hurry.
Hurry.
Tick, tick, tick.
It's so awful to choose because I just...
No, take your time.
Take your time. No, I know, I must get on there. I think probably Henry Emerson, I think, in The Informer, I think, because it was done under incredible conditions. When Ian was ready, he lost his voice and he was ready to do it again, I had my appendix out and I had to go straight from the hospital and film all night, and I had all the dialogue that night. He hadn't got any as the lead. I had all the dialogue until eventually he saw me about to just fade away on Putney Beach, and he said, just cut the cameras and stop like that, otherwise I probably would have fallen down. That was very challenging and very satisfying. Yeah, I think I'll go for that, actually. I think if I had to.
Now, this is a kind of trite question, so I want to preface it. We all know that radio and television and film are different media, and they require from an actor different techniques. Now, bearing in mind that being understood, which of the 3 do you prefer?
Stage, I think, because there you get that feedback, which is terrific. stage, I think.
So it's the live audience.
Yes, that's true. You can't beat that. Even if you're doing a comedy, or even if you're doing something very dramatic, and like on stage, the day of the start, and the power, an actor has a power on the stage. I mean, not abuse of power. He's got a power in the mechanical media, in television, films, or indeed radio. You are the behest of an editor and a director and a producer who will cut where he has to cut. On the stage, the actor has the power, not that he should abuse that power, the actor, but to be able to leave an audience, to make them laugh, and then to stop them laughing when it's necessary to stop them laughing, then to get a laugh, or to make an exit like that and to time it. That is a terrific buzz, and you can feel an audience whether you get a round of applause or whether you don't. It's addictive, that sort of power. As I say, you mustn't abuse that power, but it gives you a terrific buzz. I guess the live audience is pretty good. I love radio so much because the older I get, of course, the less inclined I am to learn lines, unless I have to. But you don't have to learn lines in radio, and I love radio. It's a terrific medium, and I enjoy that very much. But I enjoy working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've certainly excelled at that.
Done a bit.
I want to now relate things more to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
More specifically. Now, again, a question as banal as what's your favourite story, you always want to answer back, well, I always want to answer back, in what way? You know, do you mean which story did I have the most laughs on? Or which story did I think was the best looking at in retrospect? Or which story was the one where I felt my character stood up the best?
Yes.
I'm only going to ask one, and that's, which story did you have the best time on? Nothing to do with whether your part was small or large or focused or whatever. What is the one that sticks out in your memory and you think, oh my God, on location in the studio, he never stopped laughing. It was just funny from start to finish, and I had the bestest time of Doctor Who on it. And if it's not one of mine, I don't mind, honest.
No, and no, it isn't going to be one of yours. It isn't. No, as I've said before, I think I've listened very carefully to what you said, John. It probably is Inferno, because to play two sides of a coin, to play villain as well as the Brigadier, we hope you like and fond of, and to play that nasty, it's awfully satisfying. To play them in one story is very, very satisfying, very satisfying. And I did enjoy the Brigade Leader. And I think it was a good story, and again, Douglas Camfield directed it very, very well. It's a good story, it went at a terrific pace. So I think it has to be Inferno.
And that was a jolly...
Oh, I think so, yes. It was a lot of it was hard work. Well, actually, it wasn't, you see, you're right. In what way, you see, as you rightly said. It wasn't particularly jolly, because in the middle of rehearsal, Douglas had a bit of a heart attack, you know, and he had to be off the picture for a bit. And Barry Letts had to take over directing as well as producing. So it wasn't necessarily the jolliest time. No, it wasn't.
Which one was the jolliest?
The jolliest. The jolliest. Quick.
One where you just howled from start to finish, where the whole team gelled and, you know, it was just joyous.
I think...
Oh, I can't believe I've dried you.
You were... It's so hard.
Absolutely.
First time ever.
Absolutely. All right, we'll take two questions where you think.
Well, I like the Demons. Again, because we did have a good time on location, and Katie Manning, you know, and there was a great team, and John, all that. And the Demons, yeah, Inferno and the Demons, I think, rather than keep you in suspenders for any longer, mustn't keep you in suspenders any longer, I'll leave it with that for the moment. If I think of something else, I'll suddenly yell out this or that or the other.
I'm sorry to throw.
No, not at all. I'm just trying to think very quickly, sort of...
No, it's just,
it was always Johnny.
It's just that question comes up so often.
Yeah.
What's your favourite story?
What's your favourite story?
You know, and it does
In
need
what way?
qualifying. You know,
Yeah.
I've got favourite stories. Favourite in terms of on which story am I most proud of my work?
Yes.
I will tell you.
Yes.
Of which story did you have the best time?
Yeah.
Which has the most
I-
fondest memories, etc.
And there's no flower here, John, but actually then in that case, I think I've got to say, I'm afraid it was Battlefield, because we did have a great time. That's very accurate. I enjoyed Battlefield, and we did have a great time. Off we went to Skeggy for the day when we had a day off with Sylvester, and it was a very happy time. And there was, there was an element of the Brigadier came out in that good scene, you know, when he first meets Ace. It was lovely. And by that, you know, the lines were good, the company was good. I think probably it was Battlefield, the jolliest time. But then that's all your fault, John. That's why we always have a good time with John.
We all went off in a minibus.
Yeah.
Nick and I,
Sylvester.
Sophie, Michael Kerrigan, who was directing
Yeah, Michael
it,
Kerrigan. That's right.
Angela Bruce,
Angela Bruce. The Brigadier.
the Bridette, and we all went off to Skegness.
For a day, we had a day off, yeah.
And we bought Kiss Me Quick Hats.
Yes.
We played bingo, and
Yes.
Sophie won, didn't she? She won some sort
Yes,
of
and
elephant or a bear.
Ice cream cornets down the front.
Ice cream for it, fish and chips and mushy beans.
Yes,
Gins
very-
and tonics and candy floss. I mean, it sounds appalling. It was atrocious.
It was a
We
lovely
just had a really silly day.
It was a lovely day off. If you do have a day off, it's such a good idea to do that. you
We
know.
have been working extremely hard.
Very hard. Yeah.
You know, like 6 days at 14 hours a day on the trot.
Mm.
And we just decided we wanted to get away, but we're still enjoying each
Perfect.
other's company.
Exactly. Exactly. It's great fun.
Right, some question for Nick.
All for John?
Right at the back. Yes, lady with her hand still up. I think it's a lady. Yeah, you, looking round. The black lady, yeah. I'm sorry. I can't see.
We can't see. We got the lights in our eyes. We don't know.
Nick, in your opinions on Inferno playing museum game leader, which is what I mentioned, but in Mortal and Dead, how did it feel playing Brigadier in two different time zones?
Well, good question indeed. It was much harder doing Mordrin because there again, they weren't, it wasn't a parallel world, it wasn't a different aspect. I mean, they were totally different people in Inferno. In Mordrin, it was the same Brigadier, except, you know, 5 years later, quite a short period of time to make a differentiation between the two of them. But it was the same person, so it was much more difficult. And I had to concentrate very hard, and John was terrific because he'd always remind me of which Brigadier I was playing, because I was in it, you know, I was in it most of the time in the show, Brigadier 1, Brigadier 2. It was much harder work, and I had to concentrate much harder, because the character was the same, except he'd had this breakdown when he met himself. And then he had to, you know, be that, but not that much older. So it was much more difficult than Inferno. Inferno was easier because playing villains, actually, it's quite easy playing villains, well, I find. And they're, you know, it's quite natural. So that was much easier. Much more difficult in Mordrin Undead. And apart from, also I never quite understood. I remember I went to France with a lady actress friend of mine, and I still didn't understand. I don't know.
On my right, I've got somebody who I've known for that hell of a long time, but who I adore in equal. No. I adore Nicholas more than think I prefer the old time.
Okay.
The old time. So, ladies and gentlemen, on my right, Nicholas Holt, the old
And now I can introduce the other team captain. We have the voice of K9, Mr. John Leeson.
Just throw fibres. No, I'm delighted. I'm thrilled to introduce my team this evening. I have sitting on my right the person who knows intimately the secrets of K9. Far better than I could ever know the secrets of K9. And whose rear view I have occasionally seen. Looking into K9. I have to choose my words very carefully here. Thank you. On my left, I have a therapist of considerable merit. Acumen. Gary Downey, who, as some of you may know, has been deeply concerned with the welfare of Doctor Who. I say no more. I rest my case. That is my team for this evening.
Who's that mobile phone? Take it away, take it away. I
The
don't know.
mobile phone's off.
Yes,
So we can't do with this.
Give it a little all mobile phones. Take it away.
Right. I'm going to reveal a word. One team will provide 3 definitions with the word. Only one of these definitions will be the correct answer. All the other team has to do is work out which one it is. The first word is wheat wheat. Over to you, John.
Well, it's all of us.
So we don't go in order. I'm sorry. 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 No, John's right.
Wheat is actually animal. It is an animal, a bird. It's a bird that is able, it comes from Brazil, to settle on a tree stump or a tree and meld in. Rather like lizards can. You know how lizards, they have that ability to sort of blend in with their surroundings. And the wheat wheat is a Brazilian bird that's able to blend in on trees so that its plumage is bark-like. No jokes about barkers. It is a bird that can sit and blend in to a tree or a tree stump, so that, you know, it would sit on the top of a tree stump and you would notice it. Well, and all I can say is that the next time that you sit down on a tree stump, do make sure that there's not a wheat wheat up your rock pot.
To you, Nicholas.
You're in Australia. You're in Australia. And you're in Australia in 1878. 1878 is about 10 or so years after the Boer War in in South Africa, and that is the one war the brigadier didn't appear in, the Boer War. Anyway, but you're in Australia, and when you're in Australia, you will find many toys there. I mean, Anna can tell you this. Lots of lovely toys in Australia, wonderful toys. And this particular toy, this wheat is pronounced because there's a French derivation there, you see. Don't ask me how, because you will think that Australians wouldn't be very good at French derivation. But they are. But they are. And this toy consists of a head and a stem. And it is constructed in the most amazing way. If you throw this wheat, if you throw it, you can throw it for a very long distance, because there is a certain prevailing wind in Australia which will carry it apart from the strength of your own arm. And it can be thrown for an enormous distance. But the great thing about the wheat, it's not like a boomerang. No. It does not come back, this wheat. It does not come back. But whoever it hits, he won't say wheat, he will say sheet.
And to you, Anka.
Sweet friends, let it not be for me to say, what a load of bullshit. I have to tell you, Tweet was it's actually a 17th century term for, we were talking before about riders, and that was what I know about, because I used to ride horses. It's actually a 17th century term for when you're on your horse, if you wanted to go left or right or faster, you said in this wonderful 17th century term, you said, tweet, and the horse would know, you go left, you go right, you go faster, you are drawing it back. And that's what this expression means, tweet. I'm sorry guys, but this is fact.
So team, Wheat. Could it be John's Brazilian bird with its mottled plumage, which is much the same as bark? Could it be Nick's Australian toy, capable of being thrown over a great distance?